So there's a vote going to happen today. There's a discussion they're going to do behind the scenes because they don't want us to see the discussion. They don't want us to watch as they horse trade, etc. This is going to be either for a Senate majority leader or a Senate majority boss. So which is which? We'll talk about that. Plus, I have a gut check question for you. And this, God spoke this into my heart this morning. I attend a discipleship group on Wednesday mornings at 7. There's a bunch of guys get together and choose to continue to be discipled, usually by our senior pastor, Jim, who's more spiritually mature than us. And God just put this on my heart. I think it's a really important question for us. I think it's super important, particularly for those of us who voted for President Trump. I'll ask that question. We'll talk about the difference between bosses and leaders, who's being considered, and where I lean on this. I'd like to know where you lean. You can email us. Go to thetoddhermanshow.com. Talk to us there. Also be in the live discussion. I'll hop in there right now in just a little bit. I'll click the link at least and try to get in. We'll talk about this all with the help of Bulwark Capital Management, knowyourriskradio.com. Zach's first free live webinar post-election coming up November 21st. And of course, we can't do any of this or do it well without the good grace of God Almighty.
The Todd Herman Show is 100% disapproved by big pharma, technocrats, and tyrants everywhere. Now, from the high mountains of free America, here's the Emerald City exile, Todd Herman.
Today is the day the Lord has made, and these are the times in which God has decided we shall live. If you're watching this morning, it occurred to me that today when I was doing the radio show, I have a couple of, God's gifted me with a couple of national radio shows, that it occurred to me the other day while I was doing the radio show that I enjoy it more, enjoy doing the radio more. And I thought, well, why is that? It's because I'm not myself on camera. And I mean, it's not like I'm pretending or acting, but like when I do the radio show, I'll often sit back and I'll grab the microphone like this and I'll just chat with you. And I realized as I do the radio show, I've let the camera trap me. And I think sometimes my delivery sucks for that reason. So it might be that I pick this mic up and sorry, Alex, you're going to have to figure that out. That's why we pay you the big money. So let me ask you a question, because I think this is very, very important. And it's this question. Do you want President Trump to have unfettered powers? Do you want him to be unchecked? I mean, really think about this. Because this morning, as I was reading through some of the news and some of the breaking news, one of the big pieces of breaking news is his defense secretary, Pete Hegseth. I hope I'm saying that the right way, and a lot of people don't know. I mean, he was a National Guard guy. He served honorably in combat. God bless him for that. Thank you for that, Pete. I don't know that he's a bad choice. To me, the populist in me looks at this and says he's a great choice because he's outside of the Washington, D.C. Scam artistry of, hey, I was a general and a 4-star general, so I can serve on corporate boards of banks and hedge funds because I know investing, and no, because you know people. And because you know how to get behind the scenes in countries and how to set up to do business with former warlords. That's why you get that money. Plus, this guy is not going to continue with woking the military. He's already called that nonsense. He hates war. I think everybody who's been to combat probably has learned I hate war. I hate it. I've never been, never even thought of going. That's not true. Later in life, I thought of going, but I was too old. But do you want President Trump to have unfettered powers? I guess my question is, it occurred to me this morning that for the first time, I started thinking about Trump as a leader, like my leader. He's not. He's my employee. Jesus Christ is my leader. And President Trump, I'm very glad he's there. But I don't want to start thinking of him as my leader, and certainly not my daddy. That's a stupid sign. And I'm sorry, that is a stupid sign. If you want to hamper President Trump, go around with a lot of signs at freeway overpasses saying, who's your daddy? I get the humor of it, owning the libs and all, but if you want to hamper President Trump's job, make it possible for people to point to that. Just, and please gut check yourself on this. Do you want him to have unfettered powers? Unfettered powers in anyone's hands are dangerous. We know this. I mean, God himself set up distributed powers for earthly leadership. That's how that's how the church is governed in a good, healthy sense. That doesn't mean that I want someone who's going to obstruct him to be Senate Majority Leader, particularly when it comes from a certain style of obstruction, which is Washington, D.C. filth. Mitch McConnell's bank account is filth. His net worth is filth. This came from insider dealing. Everybody knows this. Everybody knows, well, not everybody, but people who know that Mitch and his wife, she inherited a company from her dad who did a lot of import-export business with the Chinese Communist Party. And funny thing, as Mitch's political power grew, their net worth grew. And his wife, Elaine, ended up being transportation secretary, deciding what shipments come into the country and such. It's filth. Bank accounts filth. John Thune, John Cornyn, let's talk about this. Let's talk about Rick Scott and the downside to Rick Scott. But let's keep in mind, please, and it might be different for you than me. You might want Trump to have unchecked powers. And so my question for you is, who checks the unchecked powers? Right? Because those things are hard to get back. Would you rather have President Trump with unchecked powers than the people who run Joe Biden? Well, at least we know who President Trump is. We don't always know, we can guess who runs Joe Biden. Personally, I don't want any unchecked powers. Kind of like the idea of checks on power. Probably you do too. If you're not checking power, it can run over you. Think about this. Think about the defenses that people made of the Kamala Harris-Biden economy. Weeks before the election, they were talking about the stock markets at record highs. Oh, look at the stock market. And sure, the stock market's at record highs as employment was at record lows, as the government was lying about employment numbers and lying about it to a pretty impressive degree. So they lie, the employment numbers are bad, small businesses are wrecked, the stock market is up, including chicken wing companies trading at 60 times earnings. Chicken wing companies. Now, that's not necessarily corruption. I'm sure there are delicious chicken wings. But 60 times earnings? Post-election, the economy is going to change. President Trump, with this unbelievably revolutionary move of having Elon Musk come in and run the Department of Government Efficiency, and look, let's not get into the Elon cult. The guy's a transhumanist. He's done some great things. I think he's going to streamline government. I don't know why Vivek Ramaswamy's there. Con artist, but I mean, maybe he'd be helpful. So post-election, November 21st coming up, Zach Abraham is doing his first post-election free live webinar. And he's going to talk about the economy, what might happen under President Trump, what's the best case scenario, how do you get in position to take advantage of this? But what's some of the risks as the Death Star decides to fight back? The Death Star is not going to give up. They want to continue to force you to purchase products you don't want at prices you can't afford from companies you hate for services you don't need. That's too good a business model to give up. So attend this, get informed, see how Bulwark manages risk, which they do through the active management of every portfolio, which can reduce risk and volatility. And it's free. Did I say it's free? Go to knowyourriskradio.com. That's K-N-O-W. Knowyourriskradio.com and register. Knowyourriskradio.com.
Investment advisory services offered through Trek Financial LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. The opinions expressed in this program are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual or on any specific security. Any references to performance of securities are thought to be materially accurate, and actual performance may differ. Investments involve risk and are not guaranteed. Past performance doesn't guarantee future results. Trek 24308.
Now that you're well protected from the government-guided announcements, forced speech, as it were. The Conservative Review, Daniel Horowitz's organization, which is a very good publication, says this about Cornyn, Thune, and Rick Scott. It's a Liberty score, and you've probably looked at their Liberty Index before. It's really well done. John Cornyn comes up with an F. 54% on issues of liberty. Senator John Thune, and can we just give it to him, man? He looks so senatorial. If you were going to sit down and get some goo and some clay, and you were going to take the goo and clay and mix it together, and you were going to mold the face of a senator, that's the senator you'd mold. Plus, dang it, are those real teeth? You think those are real? Nope. Do you think those are caps? I actually think those are caps. They might well be caps. Hair looks, I think that's real hair. I think that's real. Maybe. But then again, look, you're talking to a guy who had hair plugs. Not plugs, but hair replacement. Got those for free from an advertiser back in the morning radio days. And it hurt. They wanted me to say it didn't hurt, but it hurt. And then you get Senator Rick Scott. So wait, Thune, wow, he's a worse F than Senator Cornyn. And Thune comes in at 51%. Rick Scott on the Liberty score is an 86%. And from Florida. Thune, South Dakota, Cornyn from a very liberal area, Texas, apparently. So if we're talking about the topic of unchecked powers, maybe that's an argument for Thune and Cornyn. Maybe. Except they want unchecked powers. See, their powers are the powers of inertia. And inertia is a very, very powerful force. You remember the incidents where that container ship took out a bridge in Maryland? Remember that? Was that in Maryland? I think it was in Maryland. And it destroyed that waterway. And unfortunately, some people were killed, and there was heroic construction workers. You remember those guys? They were doing freeway work, and they risked their lives to warn people and get them off that bridge. Phenomenal. And if you remember the radio traffic, that ship went out of control. And there's some theories as to, hey, maybe it was hacked. Its navigation system was hacked. Its engines were turned off. And I guess those are interesting theories to look at. But remember when they kind of figured out they were headed towards that bridge and they tried to stop? No. I mean, you could have the same thing. I can remember I was sledding with my little girl. We lived on a big hill above the water in Seattle area. And we were sledding together, and we were going down the hill, and she was headed under a parked car. And I'm doing everything I can to stop her. And finally just pile off the sled I was on, grab the back of her sled, and put my hand up to put her head down so that if she went in, under the car, she just made it through without possibly getting hurt. And God stopped us, but man, that inertia was huge. Sledding hill. So Cornyn and Thune count on the inertia of Washington, D.C. to slow Trump's roll. Now, again, unchecked powers, this is a check and a balance. Traditionally speaking, constitutionally it is, but John Cornyn and John Thune don't like the Constitution. They don't care for liberty. They are all in on the topic of all-in wars. And Cornyn is particularly vicious when it comes to people like Ken Paxton, who's the AG of Texas. And if you're keeping track of that, and we'll talk about this a bit. Remember when they tried to impeach Ken Paxton and George W. Bush's son was involved in that? Why were they doing that? Because Ken Paxton stepped on one of the third wires of Republican politics. All elections are safe and secure. There's no questions about Americans' elections. The system is solid. It's trustable. Ken Paxton didn't think so. He was warned. We don't do this. We don't question elections. Pardon me. We don't question elections. It's not what we do. He did it. In fact, he sued. Remember that? His suit was a solid legal theory. States like Wisconsin and Pennsylvania and New Jersey and Michigan and Arizona broke the law. The Constitution says that the election of federal officers, I'm sorry, I have to drink. This never happens to me. In fact, I'm going to have to cough. In almost a decade of radio, that's never happened to me before. And maybe it's because I'm relaxing. Oh, no, you're looking at me because of the caffeine I've had. That's what you're looking at. Yeah, I've had even more caffeine than normal this morning. So Ken Paxton says, look, the Constitution's super clear. In elections for federal office, the state legislatures make the rules. But that wasn't the case in many of these states. They had the secretaries of state step in and, we're going to do it. We opt to do it. And hence you had your drop boxes and accepting ballots with no signatures or no signature verification, ballots arriving after the date of the election, as is happening in Wisconsin. We just saw, look at that weird hockey stick. All of a sudden, there's like 5,000 ballots or 50,000 or something show up, and it's, hey, 90% break-in for the Democrat late in the race. Hey, who's ever seen that? So we'll talk about this. Cornyn is all over Paxton. He hates Paxton. He rage tweets Paxton for trying to police, trying to protect the citizens of Texas from having their votes watered down by states who illegally had the legislatures voided by the secretaries of state stepping in. Mike Lee did a poll. We'll talk about this in a second. The big downside on Rick Scott, and people who are kind of single issue Second Amendment voters, they don't like Rick Scott's stance, as such as it is, on red flag laws. He said he's in favor of red flag laws so long as there's checks and balances. No, those two things don't go together. Pre-crime, thought crime does not lend itself to a constitutional check and balance. A red flag law thought crime is sort of the inverse of saying, oh, you're a boy and you say you're a girl. Okay, you're a girl. It's sort of the inverse of that. Oh, you say your friend shouldn't have a gun? Okay, well, then we'll take the gun and then we'll go doing some hearings and we'll determine if they have bad think. But there are ways to get people committed for mental health reasons. So that's the big tag on Rick Scott, that he stands with these things. At least as there's checks and balances, and they don't exist in that way. Mike Lee. I mean, it's a Twitter poll. This is a few days old. I don't think the trajectory is going to change. 188,000 votes. Who would you like to see as the next Senate Republican leader? Cornyn got 5%. Thune got 5%. Rick Scott got 90%, probably because he's President Trump's choice. Now, where does unchecked power come from? Who will check President Trump's power? If President Trump and his team are truly, truly taking a knee to God every morning in prayer and asking for wisdom, God will check their powers. God will check their powers. Landlocked submariner on the live chat. Need to get to the flexible overhead arm like he used to have when I was on local radio in the 90s. Okay, got it. I love that. But follow me around. Okay, so then I can, I know. So I can move. Oh, I was talking about moving the mic. Got it. Thank you, Landlocked submariner. Not a very liberal area in Texas. He's my rep, and I'm a strongly conservative area. Then let's get this guy out of there. Cornyn, you can get into live chat that's in the email and like to take your comments there. So Mike Lee does this poll. Here's Cornyn, and I guess from a conservative area of Texas, according to Landlocked submariner V. Brandon Smith. And this is Attorney General Ken Paxton. This is a question all Texans should be asking. Unbelievable that John Cornyn would stay up all night to defend other countries' borders, but not America. And this had to do with, of course, Ukraine. And if you've not realized this, Ukraine is now and always has been the single most important ally the United States have ever had in Europe. They helped us found the country. You recall that Ukraine lent us troops when we were fighting the French, or first the British and then the French. You remember that proud moment when Ben Franklin flew the Ukrainian flag over the building in which they voted to, they created the Declaration of Independence. And he was walking out of the building and a woman came up and said, Mr. Franklin, what sort of government have you designed for us? A republic, madam, if we can keep it just like Ukraine. So John Cornyn thought it was very, very important that we support the territorial boundaries of Ukraine, even though that part of Ukraine used to be Russia. But let's stop adding facts to this because that gets in the way. John Cornyn, Ken, your criminal defense lawyers are calling to suggest you spend less time pushing Russian propaganda and more time defending longstanding felony charges against you in Houston, as well as ongoing federal grand jury proceedings in San Antonio that will probably result in further criminal charges. And yet they didn't. And yet the impeachment trial of Ken Paxton was one of the most laughable events in jurisprudential history. And if you didn't watch that trial, we played some of it on the show. It included great moments like this. One of Paxton's lawyers talking to one of the, quote, witnesses. And did you personally witness this discussion? Senator, no. I knew a guy who heard from a dude that said it happened. Do you remember you heard from a guy who said he knew a dude who said it happened. Do you know dude's name? Senator, no. I mean, that was the caliber of case they put on against Paxton. And the impeachment flopped immediately. Do you know who Sean M. Davis is? We've had Sean on the program from time to time. It's been a while. I'd love to have him back on. He is the managing editor of The Federalist. And, oh, wow, you jumped the gun. You put that up there already, Alex. Don't get ahead of the host. Oh, it's not up there. Oh, only I see it. Okay, got it. I'll say what Sean M. Davis said in regard to this guy Cornyn, as we continue to talk about boss or leader of the Senate. And what I'm looking for is somewhere in between. I'm looking for a Senate majority leader who is, first of all, loyal to God, the God of Abraham. I'm looking for a Christian. Sorry, I am. And then loyal to the Constitution, understanding that the Constitution is under assault and that the populism we're seeing, if it's unchecked populism, it's dangerous populism. If it's populism constrained by the Constitution, it's, in other words, constitutional populism, then it's very positive. You know, there's a difference between freedom and liberty. So liberty is the ability to have freedom within constraints. For instance, on a battlefield. Now, I've never served. I'm not here to tell you that if I was in a gun battle, I'd be sitting there saying, okay, wait a minute, are this within the rules of engagement? I'm here to tell you, I'd probably be the guy shooting at just about anything that was shooting at me. But there is structured war. There are uniforms. We used to declare war, right? That we would announce we are going to war. That was an honorable thing. And there are people who served within those honorable constraints, and they grew to love liberty and defend liberty. My friend Tim Cruikshank did that. He was a Navy SEAL, 3 deployments on our behalf. All of that, I think he was, I know he did Iraq. I think he did Afghanistan. No, I know he did Afghanistan too. Afghanistan and Iraq. He was also a BUDS instructor, teaching people how to be Navy SEALs, or be more precise, weeding out people who fold, like me, to go become Navy SEALs. And when he got back in country, as it were, or in the world, he was a physician's assistant until he got fired. No, he got fired for trying to save his wife, Liz, from cancer. There were no patient's complaints against him, not at all. He never dropped the ball. But they felt he was spending too much time trying to help his wife live. And they didn't like that. So he has his coffee company, Bone Frog. But we haven't been talking about Bone Frog Cellars, which we're talking about now. It's wine done the same way as the coffee, through mentors, people who understand the wine business, people who own wineries for years, coached him in how to make great wine. And I can attest to this. Now, I don't drink wine. It would be lost on me. You could put 7-Up in front of me and say it's wine. I'd say it's wine. I just don't drink wine. My wife loved the wine. Our wine connoisseur friends loved the wine. My daughter, very new to wine, loved the wine. Her boyfriend, a little bit less new to wine, but not a guy who drinks a lot of it, loved it. So across the board. For Thanksgiving, fill the table with Bone Frog Cellars. It says God Country Team on every bottle, and that's something for which we can be thankful. Go to bonefrogcellars.com/Todd. Get 10% off all their products there. It's bonefrogcellars.com/Todd, God Country Team. So Sean M. Davis is the managing editor of The Federalist, and he is one of the smartest guys in actual conservatism. Sean M. Davis wrote this about, once again, Ukraine. If you buy that nonsense, you're an idiot. Stop risking our security and wasting our money on stupid wars that have nothing to do with us. John Cornyn. Channeling Neville Chamberlain, I see. Yes, that's exactly the same thing. You see, Ukraine, where there are actual, not Nazis because they're orange, not Nazis because they mean tweet, but actual Nazis. In other words, the ideology of National Socialism with the actual tie back to that guy Hitler, the real Hitler, where they actually control parts of the country. It's exactly the same thing. Not wanting to get deeply involved in Ukraine or continue to pour money into this is exactly the same thing as watching Adolf Hitler roll over Europe, Poland and France, and eventually headed into Russia. And how many other countries along the way did he capture? It's exactly the same thing as watching him go into neighborhoods, destroy them, capture Jewish citizens and gypsies and same-sex attracted people. And after he stopped playing footsie with the communists, and to take them into concentration camps where they were worked to death and sometimes just killed en masse, is exactly the same thing as us not wanting to get into a territorial dispute between Russia and Ukraine over blocks of land that were indisputably that of Russia for a while, until people like Barack Hussein Obama and Victoria Nuland, who worked for us, decided to go start a coup. That's exactly the same thing. So Sean M. Davis wrote this. John Cornyn, who's currently running for Senate Majority Leader, called me a Nazi sympathizer last year when I said the U.S. should secure its own border before spending hundreds of billions of dollars on Ukraine. John Cornyn is disqualified, utterly and completely, because John Cornyn is not a United States senator. He's a senator from Ukraine. I would like to have our senators. How about you? John Thune isn't as verbose, but John Thune is the very picture of a shiny-shoed Republican. He is the CEO Roundtable's senator. He is the guy who recognizes that illegal immigration lowers labor costs. He is the guy who cozies to the United States Chamber of Commerce, which is nothing in relation to local chambers of commerce, which are sometimes quite good. I can speak from experience, having been in board meetings with these guys, that they love guys like Thune, because guys like Thune play so well. And again, I mean, mold them from clay. There's your tough chin, hard chin United States Senator Johnny Thune. They love a guy who plays that role and then turns around and is selling corporate entities favor upon favor, including locking out competition through clever legislation. That's what they want. Thune isn't as verbose as Cornyn. He is not as arrogant as Cornyn, at least in public, but his Liberty score alone disqualifies him. So what do we want from Rick Scott? Here's the big question. Do you know, is Scott willing to say no to President Trump? Let's be honest about some things. There are people who said no to President Trump, and they're still getting rewarded. I mean, Thomas Massie, Representative Massie, was against the injection diktats. He was against some of President Trump's big spending. He was against a lot of things Trump did, and in favor of a lot of things that Trump did, and helped campaign for him and wanted him to be president. But Thomas Massie's not owned by Trump. He's friendly to, he is MAGA, he is put America first. He's all these things. He's about right-sizing our food system and getting the corporate, corruptocrats out of our food system, the food bureaucrats out of the way, out of getting the FDA out of the way and the EPA, where this isn't about regulating safety. This is about forcing you to purchase products you don't want, like fake meat. So Thomas Massie's the sort of personality I'm looking for, who's with us, clearly with the Constitution, clearly not wanting us to turn in and to topple into some unchecked leadership form of government, He's willing to say no, is Rick Scott. On occasion, we need the Senate majority leader and perhaps behind the scenes to go to President Trump and say, look, Mr. President, on this one, I got to differ. And then let's debate it. Let the American people debate it in public. But let's have the disagreement behind the scenes. Maybe that's who Rick Scott is. Because I hope that's what President Trump is seeking, is people who will tell him, look, your instincts on this might be right, but what if we tried it this way? I think that's super, super important for us to do because sometimes our instincts can mislead us. I think a lot of us have had instincts over time of just, well, trust the white coats. That's how we were raised. Trust the white coats. The white coats will take care of us. And the white coats being doctors. They're the ones who are going to take care of us. I think that's probably changed for a lot of us in our minds. I think it's important that we do everything we can to avoid needing doctors and consequently staying out of their grasp. Okay, here's a quick, easy hack you can do to get yourself ahead of the curve in this way. Man, speaking of that, man, I'm coughing this morning. It must be because I'm so healthy. There's a 3-product stack I've been using for years, and it comes from Bioptimizers. So Bioptimizers, they freak out during Black Friday. They love this stuff. Matt and Wade like to consider how they can have really cool contests and savings. So right now, here's what they've set up. They emailed me. Like, what do you think is our products have had the biggest impact on your life? I said, without a doubt, it's my daily stack. Now, my daily stack of products starts with Magnesium Breakthrough. Or actually, my night ends with Magnesium Breakthrough. I take 2 or 3 of these tablets before bed, a couple hours before bed. They're not sleeping pills. They just help me relax and fall into sleep. And that's a great feeling to accidentally, all of a sudden you realize you're asleep. That's different than trying to sleep. When I'm using Magnesium Breakthrough, I go back to sleep when I wake up. That's product number 1. Product number 2 is called Mass Zymes, which works throughout the day to help your body produce more amino acids. Amino acids are the building block of proteins. Proteins are the building block of muscles. And through a test at Berkshire and National University, Mass Zymes were proven to produce 1,200% more amino acids in people's bodies. That's product number 2. Product number 3 is P3OM. Eat these pills. Take these pills before you eat a couple times a day, and you will get more nutrition from your food because it helps your body more precisely and efficiently break these things down, the foods. That product stack, dig this savings. This is how these guys get whacked when it comes to this November time. Go to Boptimizers.com/Todd. Use promo code Todd. Number 1, that unlocks you qualifying for $100 worth of free gifts. Okay, so you can qualify for that, and if you get that, let me know. They're great gifts. The other thing it unlocks is all those products at 25% off. So you can today order these and sometime soon be having the same exact benefits I have and see what that is like. And when you love it and continue to use it, in my mind, it keeps you further away from doctors and the corrupt medical system. So choose your health this Black Friday. Go to Bioptimizers.com/Todd. Bioptimizers.com/Todd. Use promo code Todd to get not 10 or 15% off, but 25% off this product stack. And that only happens during Black Friday. Bioptimizers.com/Todd, promo code Todd. This is Senator Ron Johnson talking about pushing for a delay in naming the Senate Majority Leader.
That's why I'm going to be, I think others are going to be asking for delay in that vote. Again, that is, I mean, it is grotesque the way that came down. Last minute as we're leaving town, it's announced we're going to be voting Wednesday morning. Go, what? We're going to be in town for less than 24 hours. No discussion, no candidate forums, no nothing. Just, I'm sure McConnell figured he had, whoever he wants, grease the skids and just do it before anybody even notices. Yeah. Well, I think the American people are noticing.
Oh, so there's going to be a delay? That would be great. I mean, is there a motion
sure
there?
So. Again, it'll take a majority of our conference to basically vote for a delay. But, if somebody else doesn't propose, it's probably better off if somebody else does propose it. But if nobody else does, I will.
Someone needs to, because what is the hurry? Why not take this to the people? Why not? Why not have a presentation system? Why not make it an open election? Oh, I know. I remember it from my government classes 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. And then, man, when I got to community college, because, man, I went to a big-time community college. Spokane Falls Community College. And was playing the football. And so it was a very serious thing. And I thought, now we're digging in. Now I'm getting college. And our professor came in. He was talking about their governing system. And he said, who can provide a good metaphor for the Senate versus the House? Like, oh, please don't do T. Please don't do T. Don't do T. He did T. Do you know the T metaphor? Do you know the T metaphor? You don't know the T metaphor? Here's the T metaphor that was 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. And then I got to college thinking I'd never need to hear the T metaphor again. See, the House of Representatives, that's that hot tea. Super hot, man. And if you drink that, it can burn you because they're in there for every 2 years. But then that tea that drips out over the edge and it gets into the saucer, the little tiny plate that fancies use, that's that cool tea. It's a time to cool down. So you can slurp that, maybe pour that back in to the teacup and take the temperature down. That's why they're every 6 years. Why the delay? Because there's no need to rush. President Trump is making his appointments. We're going to want to get recess appointments, right? We want President Trump to come in with a full team, right? So why not have a public discussion? Because they don't want the debate in public. They're not debating the country. They're debating who runs the Senate. And so people behind closed doors are saying, yeah, but what about my guys? You know, I've got some really important bills coming up. I've got some companies who really need me. I've got some lobbyists. And remember Mitch. Do you remember Mitch McConnell's big reason that he supported the Ukrainian war? Every time we send weapons over there, you know, we rebuild American manufacturing base, punish one of our global enemies, and rebuild our manufacturing base. To me, it's all good news. What year is it, Mitch? Senator. There should be a delay until we have a public discussion. Incidentally, did you see the figurehead Biden brought President Trump back to the White House and said, welcome back? Oh, you know, can you imagine Kamala Harris? Man, I bet Doug Emhoff is whooping up on some of their female staff today. Get me Nancy from housekeeping. I got to lay hands on somebody. Kamala Harris calling Willie Brown. I never should have laughed. It was the biggest mistake of my life. I love you, Willie. Also from Washington, D.C., do you remember a woman named Lisa Monaco? No? She was Bobby Mueller's chief of staff when he ran the FBI. She was one of Obama's closest aides. She participated in the secret Situation Room meetings with Johnny Brennan in 2016 to concoct the Russia collusion hoax. Guess who wanted her to have great big government jobs that she got? Johnny Cornyn. I'll remind you of this in a second. So we continue to disqualify some of these people. United States Deputy Attorney General. Johnny Cornyn thought she would be great at that, given that she'd concocted one of the most vicious hoaxes in political history. Vicious, long-lasting, and ruinous. Yesterday was a great big day in reality. The reality of this, that you don't get to decide unless you commit the awful cowardice or cowardly act of shortening your life through. You don't get to decide the time of the day of your death or your birth. Yesterday, we celebrated Alan from Alan Soap's 14th birthday. If you missed this, this runs against everything The medical professionals, the white coat, said would happen. They said that Alan would be dead in 30 or like 30, 90 days, not live 3 months. And then it was going to be, no, 3 years. And then it was 6. Now he's 14. And I can see why the medical professionals said this, because they didn't put God into the equation. Alan had a mission. He's here for a reason. And it's expressed through soap because he has trouble with words. He's very, very profoundly high up on the autism spectrum. So it's difficult for him to speak. He's effectively nonverbal, but he's inventive and he's smart. And he's got a passion for his soap company. So he invents these really cool fragrances, and sometimes fragrance free. There's a soap there called Plain. Now, Alan can't make the soap. He's been through like 18 operations. He's got a lot of physical challenges. Plus, his family, they didn't know how to make soap. So they went on a search, and they found a family back Pennsylvania way. And they have 3 generations of soap making expertise. And they said, look, we want to form a soap company. We want the ingredients to be all natural. We want to make sure everything's made in America. The soap is to be excellent, the highest possible quality, because my son's name's going to be on it. My son's going to work there. Now, Alan's brother Ian works there. Ian also has autism. And a few months ago, they brought on a young woman. And think of this. She was neurotypical and then got autism. And everything changed for her. And so people went from saying, hey, your college material, your job material, to why don't you go live in a box and play video games and snack on psychotropics? No, that's not what Alan says. They employ her for social media, and she's killing it. So you can continue to purchase your soap from companies who hate your values, if you like. Sorry, Alex, for the noise. From companies who hate your values, if you like. Or you can go to allensoaps.com/Todd and get 10% off all their products there. And they give you these suggestions. For the holidays, use the liquid soap Ian's Blend. That way you can have a conversation about the Allen Soaps company and give people, particularly anybody you know who has kids with special needs, give them Allen Soaps as a way to enter into a conversation with them about all lives mattering, and for kids with special needs, how they can achieve in ways that the world would tell you they can't. Lisa Monaco wanted to be Deputy Attorney General. As I said, she'd worked for Bobby Mueller when he ran the FBI. Bobby Mueller, of course, decided to detail all of the national security felonies Hillary Clinton committed, probably 400 of them, and then let her off. She was a close aide to Barack Hussein Obama. She was involved in the Situation Room meetings with John Brennan, where they apparently concocted the entire Russia hoax based upon the skullduggery of Perkins Coie and Hillary Clinton. So John Cornyn on Lisa Monaco.
One of the nominees who came before the Judiciary Committee yesterday was Lisa Monaco, who's been nominated to serve as Deputy Attorney General. Ms. Monaco is a lifelong public servant.
I love that phrase.
Previously spent 15 years at the Department of Justice.
Wow. Big.
She's a highly respected federal prosecutor and national security expert.
Huh.
She advised President Obama and a number of other top government officials on matters like homeland security, cybersecurity.
How's our homeland security going? In what condition do we find it? Was she advising us about the time that the old executive office building was hacked? And then wasn't there that incident at the Pentagon where someone picked up a USB device in the parking lot and decided to plug it into a computer? That sort of device? Got it. No, please continue, brave senator from Texas who has an F score on the Liberty score from Conservative Review, John Cornyn.
And counterterrorism. And her expertise extends beyond the ins and outs of matters of policy. Her knowledge of the Department of Justice as an organization will be invaluable. The department, whose more than 100,000 employees are responsible for carrying out the diverse set of missions. It's a huge organization with a lot of moving parts. Like Judge Garland, Ms. Monaco affirmed to me that she does not intend to inject politics or even to give it a hearing within the Department of Justice and her duties as Deputy Attorney General. I asked her, for example, if she would allow Mr. Durham, who's been appointed special counsel, to investigate the Crossfire Hurricane issue in the last administration and the tail end of the Obama administration, and she said she saw no reason not to give Mr. Durham a chance to complete his work. That's the same position we took on Robert Mueller, who was appointed as a special counsel to investigate President Trump. And again, I take her at her word that she will not do anything to fire Mr. Durham or deprive him of the ability to complete his important work. Ms. Monaco discussed her experience at the department over the course of...
Oh, boy. So let's just review the Department of, what's it called? Oh, that's right, Justice. Do you see anything even approaching justice or impartiality that came out of the Merrick Garland Justice Department? Anything? She would not let ideology enter the picture. Having known that the Trump as Russian plant thing was a hoax, did she step forward and say, that's a hoax? Nope. John Cornyn is disqualified. John Thune is disqualified based upon his Liberty score, his corporate republicanism. Rick Scott is a good choice. Will he respectfully, wisely, because President Trump is a man with an ego, please, let's admit that about our president, and I'm very glad he's there, because the alternative is satanic. Will he wisely disagree with presidents and remember that the Senate is a co-equal branch of government, along with the executive and the judiciary? I don't want President Trump to have unchecked powers for him. I don't want to see him become intoxicated with that. That could put his soul at risk and a country at risk. I want him to be strong, carry out his promises. I hope he's on his knees every single morning, asking God to work through him, to have God channel his wisdom. Other people can seek earthly leaders. Other people can want unchecked powers for their earthly leaders. People who truly choose to abide with Christ can't. Others can, we can't. Lord, thank you for making that clear to us. This is the Todd Herman Show. Please go be well, be strong, be kind, and please make every effort to keep your eyes on the one and true King, Jesus Christ.